On the Thursday of Holy Week, Jesus was together with his friends and they were celebrating something called the Passover, which was a meal that helped them to remember that they had once been slaves in Egypt and that Moses had freed the Israelites and God had brought them into the promised land. So it was a very holy feast for them. At the beginning of this story, Jesus decides to show the disciples how to be servants of everyone and that this is the way to be a good leader in the world. And so he took off his outer robe and he grabbed a basin of water and he washed their feet. Now, this was usually the job that the lowliest of the lowly of the slaves did. But Jesus was a different kind of leader. He wanted to show us that we should be servants to one another. Now, his friend Peter thought this was crazy. He didn't want his Lord to be his servant. But Jesus explained that it was important for him to do. And that, in fact, we ought to wash one another's feet as a sign of being servants to one another. Then they continued to the Passover meal. And at the beginning of the meal, Jesus took bread and he gave it to everyone. And he said, "This is my body, which is given for you. Do this for the remembrance of me." And then again after supper, he took the cup and he gave it for all to drink, saying, "This cup is the new covenant in my blood, shed for you and for all people for the forgiveness of sin. Do this for the remembrance of me." And for the very first time, all of his disciples shared communion together. After this happened, he reminded them of the greatest commandment, which in fact he called the new commandment. He told his disciples to love one another. Not only to love one another, but to love one another as much as God loves them. He said, "This is how the world will know that you are my followers, if you have love for one another."